Do you know what connects these seemingly unrelated photos? On the left, you can see Kongo Gimi, a Japanese company, construction company, working for over 14th century without interrupts, making it the longest functioning company in the world. On the right, you can see Piwnica Świdnicka, a Polish accent here in Wrocław. That's the restaurant working from the 13th century. So now you might be wondering why I'm mentioning some different businesses here during the IT conference. Well, the reason is that businesses has been operating for centuries. Software just helps us to build business better, but it still conforms to exactly the same rules as centuries ago. So, because of that, there must have been some patterns, some business patterns emerging over all of these centuries. And today I'm going to help you how to find these patterns. Okay, when you join a new project, maybe you feel lost, you don't know where to start, you don't know where is this domain model, what's the most important part of the domain model. Maybe can you see some patterns here? Then it clicks in your mind. Yeah, there are great books about models. Yeah? Books as Enterprise Patterns and MDA, and Analysis Patterns by Marvin Fowler. But when you open these books, you see something like this. And then something like that. And then, again, some more structures, more UMLs. At some point, it starts looking something like that in your mind, which is pretty terrible. So, in my opinion, archetypes is something more than structure. Archetypes are all about the behavior. Unfortunately, finding this behavior is not so easy. But there is a way, and I'm going to show it to you. I called it the archetype heuristics. Instead of searching for some structures, instead for looking in code, you look for some behavioral patterns. For instance, during the process storming or discussions, product vision boards, whatever you use to identify key business processes. And I guarantee, if you start with behaviors, your value will dramatically rise. But looking for these behaviors, for the patterns of these behaviors, might look like looking for an exit from a huge labyrinth. Hey, I'm Mike, and I am the guy that will give you the map how to get out of this labyrinth. In my opinion, engineers can be great business partners if they understand business archetypes and domain model archetypes. There is a slight difference between these two terms, but we'll get back to it later. So now I'm going to show you some catalog of archetypes, some selection of archetypes I decided are the most interesting ones. The first one is inventory. Maybe you've heard about it. It's quite popular. So this time, instead of looking at code or some structures, we'll take a look at processes. So take a look at examples of this software house, of processes inside the software house business. So what happens first is that contract needs to be signed, then new engineer is hired, project is started, engineer is assigned to a project. What happens next? Engineer can leave the project, or task can be added to the backlog, task can be assigned. If enough tasks are done, eventually the project ends. Yeah, tasks can be also unassigned in the meantime. And there can be some bad things happen, like engineer can become sick, engineer can quit, can return, went on a vacation, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Okay, another process from a different business. Imagine some library, a very simple one, a very linear one. Book bought, book added to the catalog, book reserved, book borrowed, book returned, fee applied, fee paid. Simple one. And the third one is the train tickets reservation system. Now, the leg can be added. Leg is like a little distance between two cities. Then the segments can be combined out of legs. Train can be scheduled. And then first class seat can be reserved. Afterwards, reservation can expire or the ticket can be sold. In the meantime, train can be delayed, so the train schedule is changed. So, if you look at this, 3 different businesses, but operating on a concept of some resources, of some limited resources here. No matter whether these are train tickets, books, or people, engineers, working on the projects, this is all about capacity planning and management and all about managing some inventory, in fact. Okay, and when you identify this, you can immediately start seeing some context map patterns in your head. These are more like blueprints, which give you some insights where to start with your modeling decisions. But when I identify, oh yeah, this is the archetype inventory, I know. Yeah, I know that, for instance, there will be the context availability inside it. That just manages what's available at this moment, what can be reserved, unreserved, sold, and so on. Then, another one is capacity planning and management. Capacity planning and management is all about planning how much items, how much products do we need to schedule for later, how much do we want to also manage the capacity, because we might say, okay, we won't be selling all of the tickets now because we will sell them like 2 times more during the holiday season, for instance. So there's the concept of this planning and management. There is also the context of supply, which helps you to deliver things or services you might need according to the needs of the capacity planning and management. And finally, the context catalog. Catalog is just what we offer. By the way, catalog is the archetype on its own. So that's what you see in your mind. That's what you can start with. Instead of building the architecture from scratch, you already know the boundaries, because you know this is exactly the same problem that's been solved, that was solved like hundreds of times over centuries. Okay. So, to make sure you're on the right track, you might use questions and answer heuristics. So, just by looking at the processes might not be enough, because you need to understand the meaning behind these processes, the meaning what the stick is actually mean from the perspective of the authors. So you ask some more questions. Questions like, what do we sell? Are we operating with limited resources? How many users can reserve our services and products? Are we selling time slots? Is this service or product always available? Do we want to manage capacity? And so on and so forth. You start asking business questions during these processes. And then when you hear some answers like, we need to restock, we are operating at the 80% of last year's capacity, the demand is greater than our current supply, this item or service is limited, or it's not available to that type of clients, and so on and so forth, you know, yeah, it starts to click in. It starts to click in my head, yeah, I am on the right track. I'm almost sure I am operating within the inventory here. Okay, second one. The most fun one. Time for a party. So again, in software house, lead can be contacted, then the contractor is hired, client can be acquired, or client can become partner. Then partner-contractor join a project, so partner can be also the contractor, or individual contractor can join us, and then the match for the contractor is found. Contractor finally joins the project and the responsibility is assigned. Okay, so some different types of roles here. In the car workshop, the supplier can be shortlisted, supplier contract can be signed. client can schedule a visit, client can leave a car, and then the issue is diagnosed, so the best supplier of parts is found, and then the special offer is prepared, or a regular offer is prepared according to the status of the client. For instance, if it's a company or not. Okay. Also, if we couldn't diagnose the issue, then the best partner workshop is found. The best partner workshop in terms of, okay, if we cannot do it, maybe our partners can solve it, and so on. And then we recommend this partner so we can get a fee. Okay. And the third example from the employee management. So these are the processes from the promotion part. So, for instance, from the promotion part. So, employee promotion can be suggested by a manager, then HR can approve this and employee promotion is accepted. Or when employee's promotion is suggested by CEO, then employee promotion is accepted immediately without asking anyone. We have also the concepts of votes. For instance, if enough employees nominate other employee, in this case the threshold is 10 employees, then HR can approve it and employee promotion is accepted, because that's another way to actually promote people based on the votes they prepared. Okay, so when you see that kind of processes, again, you can have some idea of the context map, of the boundaries of what's being used here. Okay, and one of the contexts in the party archetype is something I call the parties. Parties is about the identity, managing identity of different parties. Party can be a company, can be a partner, can be a supplier, can be a user, however you call it. User would be a bad name, but you know what I mean. Okay. Another one is roles and relationships. And this is a separate context from the parties, because roles and relationships are very, very dynamic. And you can compose a complex roles out of the simple ones, and you can create a graphs of dependencies. For instance, I am the client of my supplier, which is the partner of, and so on and so forth. Then, the context of addresses, which manages addresses for each party. It's separated because addresses usually have some different rules and it's a bit more dynamic. So it's just about, okay, that for instance, if you are a company, you need to have the address that conforms to some rules and so on and so forth. You can have more than one address and there might be some rules about it. Next one is capabilities. Capabilities is more optional in this relationships here. Capabilities is all about who can possibly do what. So if specific party has capability, for instance, to become a Java engineer based on some certifications, we use these capabilities for responsibilities. So for instance, if we want to assign some party to some responsibility, we might say, yes, we can do this because it meets the required conditions. Finally, the authentication part, and it's not strictly about only the security thing, it's about how do we know, according to some more complex business rules, who is allowed to what types of authentications, and maybe some more complex logic about it. If it's a very simple one, we can just probably integrate with the security and authentication as the external system. But generally speaking, that's what you can start seeing when you identified the party. Again, questions and answers heuristics. For example, what roles do we have? We have client, supplier, employee, manager, and so on and so forth, a lot of them. Can a client be the supplier at the same time? Yes, it depends. Sometimes we haven't really thought about that, but it's some option to consider. Okay. You won't always get yes, no. Are roles static? No, roles can change dynamically over the course of our software. So, are you interested in relationships between different actors, maybe? Yes, we want to know our best suppliers. Yes, we want to understand how many other partners our clients have. Yes, I need to know all employees working at the manufacturing department based near Warsaw. That kind of things. And when you hear that kind of answers, you know, yeah, it wouldn't be enough to just have some roles in Spring security. You need something more. You need to manage it. There is something more complex logic on top of that. Okay, next one, template and execution. Take a look at this. In the domain of the online trainings, what do? You load some training, you prepare the agenda for the training, then you can manage the agenda, add some days, add some activities, and so on and so forth. And then the training can be scheduled at some day, and when it's the right day, the training is launched. After training is launched, the trainer can join, then the participants can join. After all participants join, the training starts. There is one special event here that separates some phases, like the preparation on left, preparation of the agenda of the training, and on the right, the execution according to this agenda. Very similar case in the conference. Agenda is prepared, speakers are added, speakers are announced, agenda is finalized, website is launched, and afterwards the conference can be started. When a conference starts, what can happen? That the session can be started, session can be ended, session can be rated, and eventually the conference ends. And again, there is one special event here. Conference started that separates two different distinctive phases. In the model of the crowdfunding, the project draft for the project can be created, draft can be updated, draft can be transformed into a proposal, then proposal is accepted, and project fundraising is started. So the borrower can fundraise and finance his project. Then investors can invest into project. Eventually project is funded, so funds are released to the borrower, interest is paid, and eventually project is repaid or project is defaulted if the borrowers have issues with paying the interests. Again, one special event. Preparation of the details of the project. What do we need to do? How much do we need? How much money we need to collect? What's the acceptable interest rate? Yeah, defining these things. And then, totally different context, totally different thing, executing this according to the rules. In template and execution, structure is very simple, actually. You have something, the context called the collaborative construction. And collaborative construction is like a Google Docs, you might say. A way to actually prepare some documents without any special verification, potentially multiple creators are working on that, and so on and so forth. When the draft is created, then there needs to be some extra validation and some extra rules, the acceptance. And then there need to be some people or some machines, however you call it, that decide, okay, I accept this draft as final one. When you accept this draft, the document is prepared and the execution context consumes this according to the agreed, accepted document. Questions for template and execution. Do we have some pivotal events? Pivotal which separates some different business phases, not necessarily using the term pivotal. Why do we need it? What does it become after something? Does change in template in before affect the execution? Or does the execution affect something which is before? This should be separate. So execution shouldn't impact on the template. And template can only define how the execution behaves, but after it starts, you have no control over it. Can we edit? Can we add something? Is there any validation? What are the business rules? What are the differences between the steps before and after this pivotal event? That kind of questions. And when you hear something like, this draft is prepared by some other team, we don't know what happens after this. We just created this document, and that's all we know. One team tells, there is no validation at all. The other one tells, we need to check and validate the rules. We cannot change that after something started. and we need to create a copy and run it again to change the rules of the execution. So when you hear that kind of answers, you can be pretty sure you're operating in the template and execution archetype. The last one, similar to the template execution, is something called the group decision making. So basically in the group decision making, it looks similar to the template, but we need to gather different signatures. So after, for instance, preparing terms and conditions, new version of terms and conditions, we need to agree on the new terms and conditions on our platform, because that has some huge impact on all the other behaviors of the system. For instance, after these terms and conditions are signed, the terms and conditions can be approved, and terms and conditions release can be scheduled, and eventually terms and conditions can be accepted by previous users on our platform or new ones. Until terms and conditions are approved, signatures can be also withdrawn, which invalidates the terms and conditions. In sales, you can imagine a case where you are preparing some strategy, and strategy is either accepted or rejected. But to accept a new strategy, you need to have multiple signatures before the strategy is being executed. Similar case in GitHub. You have some PRs, and after checks succeeded, you also need to have some PRs reviewed. You need some quality gates telling, okay, we need to have at least 2 reviews which accept this change, and afterwards it's merged and finally it's deployed. Yeah, because that might have a huge impact on our business. We need to be sure, and we need to get these signatures, this acceptance of change from multiple parties. Okay. Context map, extremely simple, actually. In the decision making, there is a decider which can accept the idea, reject the idea, or withdraw the decision behind it. Then decision is made or idea is rejected based on what happens here in the decision making. Decision making can have quite complex rules and policies regarding who can vote, how much this vote is actually worth, are there any weights, and so on and so forth. So afterwards, after the decision is made, the rest of the systems can execute according to this decision. So that's similar to the template and execution. What differs is this part with signatures. Questions. Do we expect immediate results? Who's responsible for executing this action? Are there any regulations for this action? Can we stop the execution of an action easily? Are there any negative consequences of executing this command? What can go wrong? When you hear it's not executed immediately, we need to ensure things will not break before running this. We need at least 2 people to confirm this. Compliance requires from us some extra validation before we can run this, and so on and so forth. You know, okay, there are some important decisions. We need to make sure everything works correctly. Archetypes can be also combined. So when you see the template and execution, and if you just replace the right side of it with the group decision making, that's actually a combination of the draft preparation and then the acceptance of the group decision making and the signatures within. Now you might be wondering, okay, yeah, I've shown you some archetypes, I've shown you some questions and answers, heuristics, some context maps, some patterns, but okay, when I join a totally new project, where do I start? Because potentially there can be multiple domain model archetypes, and you wouldn't be going from full scan all of them and then keep asking a lot of questions. That wouldn't be possible. So that's why I've introduced a concept called the archetype funnel. In the archetype funnel, the first step is to identify the business model. When you identify the business model, you can start seeing some business model archetypes in your head. There are 3 main business model archetypes: trade, service, and product, and intersections of them. Each of them has some distinct meaning. For instance, in trade, we just sell stuff. In service, we just sell services. In product, we sell one time of products. But when you combine product and service, you get a subscription. So when you start understanding the business models, for instance, using the business model canvas, start asking about key partners, key activities, value proposition, customer relationships, and so on and so forth, you start seeing, okay, I kind of like feel what this business is doing. And then when you combine the details of the business model and the archetype of this business model, you can have a pretty good understanding. Yeah, so based on all of my findings, I know that if we are, for instance, operating within the trade, there is a huge chance of actually using the inventory archetype within. And then you have a selection. You have a selection of potential domain model archetypes. And you don't need to go for each one of them and keep asking questions. You have limited it to like 2-3 archetypes. And the last step is this questions and answers heuristics I have already shown you. Since you know there would be like 3-4 archetypes, you can keep asking specific questions for each of the archetypes. And then, boom, you know, yeah, we know we are operating with an inventory, party, group decision-making, template execution, or any other archetype. So, archetypes are something more than code or structure. It's all about behaviors and mental models. That's why instead for trying to look for structures or code, you can start by asking the right questions. And the business model archetypes suggest some domain model archetypes. When I mean domain model archetypes, I mostly mean them on the strategic part, on the context map part. What's the gain in it for you? So, you will never be lost again. You will understand the business. You kind of will feel again that your job makes sense. You will avoid the burnout because of this, become a business partner, and simply get paid more. Thanks. It would be great if we could stay in touch, so please feel free to send me a message via email or connect me on LinkedIn. I am Mike Wojtyna. I am the architect, trainer, consultant. I also prepare some courses, and I also have Finding Archetypes workshop based on my Archetypes funnel method. So if you enjoyed it or you would just like to rate it, I would be very, very grateful if you could scan the QR code, rate my presentation, give me some feedback, and in return you will get access to this presentation and also a discount on the Finding Archetypes workshop. Thank you.